Is this the best side that we've seen?
Yes, I thought, particularly last season, they were magnificent. They got the most points we've ever seen, most goals we've ever seen. We've got to remember, Manchester United have won 3 titles on the trot twice. Man City have still got to do that. They've only won on 2 occasions consecutively. But I think Man City have played some wonderful football. They've been inventive. They've been great to watch. They've got the balance right now between the defensive side of the game and the attacking side of the game. And we're seeing things from this Man City side that I don't think we've seen from too many Premier League teams before.
Do you agree, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, last year they were riding over the line and there was nobody really behind. This year, they got asked a serious question. In fact, they were trailing for most of the season. So they really got asked all the questions about all the tools they had in the bag. You know, and to put that run together at the end, to pip Liverpool by a point, who were also great and never really gave much away, just a little bit, but not much, I think was testament to the squad. I mean, they had a few injuries as well. I mean, they lost Fernandinho. Benjamin Mendy had an injury-hit season again. They had some injuries to the centre-halves. Nobody will be giving them any sympathy because they've got a big squad.
Yep.
However, they cope with that and still come out just above Liverpool.
I actually think that even though the record-breaking season was last year, that this season becomes even more impressive because of what it means to defend the title and how difficult that is and how complacency can set into a group and was not allowed to do so either Pep Guardiola or the players or whatever culture is it that they build within this organization. You can see a team that was pushed, as Craig was alluding to, and they answer the call. There were many times during the year where Manchester City could have said, you know what, it's just not happening for us, and yet they continue to come up with performances, come up with results, with important goals, with Vincent Kompany putting out top corner. Whatever it was needed for them to win, they did. And to get that run at the very end where they could not afford to drop any points whatsoever, and when you have to be perfect and to be able to do that for a long stretch of time, that says a lot about a team.
Ali makes a great point about the culture and the way they couldn't be complacent, because at the beginning of the season, Sane was one of the best players last year, and for the first 8, 9, 10 games, he was nowhere to be seen. Pep Guardiola didn't like his attitude for whatever reason. I'm not going to play you, and I think that sends a message to the rest of the players.
Where do we stand in the conversation regarding how much credit Pep Guardiola should take for this success and how much it's just down to the resources that Manchester City have regarding their budget?
I mentioned the creativity that we've seen, things we've never seen in the Premier League in terms of the movement of players. You know, last season we saw fullbacks coming in to play in central midfield, so it allowed space for balls to be played out wide. There's things that we haven't seen from other people, and that's down to the coach. He's someone that dictates to the players in a certain way, this is what I want you to do, this is how we're going to create space. They play out from the back. Some teams play out from the back with no real purpose. They play out with the back by trying to drag the opposition on, and then if the opposition leaves space, they then head it into Aguero and play for it. But they know the ball's coming. I think he's got to take a massive lot of credit.
Well, if you're going to hammer a manager and he takes the blame for bad results, then he has to take a huge amount of credit for good results and, more importantly, performances. I mean, he identified the first year he came in that the full-backs were not up to what he wanted and how he wanted to play, changed that. They identified what kind of goalkeeper that they wanted, and my God, he is a one-off.
Yeah.
What he does with his feet is just...
And remember, he got one in that didn't work, so he got him back out again.
And
Bravo. He put Bravo in to start with.
But the Ederson one was... I mean, I've never... You know, that's one of the most important cogs in this wheel. It's unbelievable what he does. But just the way that they play. So you can spend... There's been plenty of coaches who have spent lots of money, right, and players, but their teams have not played in this manner and in the way they go about it. And also the fact that you look at what he's done with, you know, Aguero's attitude has certainly changed. We talked about that for a little bit on yesterday's show because he looked like he might be surplus to requirements. It likes a little bit of a party time, and I think he's been told, listen, you knuckle down here or not. But one of the biggest changes is Raheem Sterling. Good player. When City bought him from Liverpool. Good player until Guardiola came in. He's now a great player. He's now one of the top, 10 in world football. His game's just gone through the roof. It's amazing.
So obviously, we'll be looking ahead to the new season a lot.
Yes, they're favourite. Yes, they're favourites.
Where do they need to strengthen? Where is the weakness in this side?
Well, I think when Fernandinho is out, it does open a hole in terms of a defensive presence in that midfield. Because Gundogan is going to do a job, but he's a guy that likes to have the ball on his feet and be able to distribute. And because they have a lot of the possession, they're able to get away with Gundogan there. However, he's not a guy that, when there's a team that is willing to press them and be physical with them, he's not the guy that you want in that spot. He wants he should be the guy distributing the ball, not the guy tackling the ball. And so if Fernandinho is a guy that you think it may have some injury issues in the future, that's an area that you address. As it pertains to everywhere else, I mean, what else do you want? Yeah. Maybe you want a stronger backup for Sergio Aguero, or a guy that can push Sergio Aguero, because maybe he's running out of goals, but it's impossible to say that when he's been near the top of the goal scorers in Manchester City. And just think about this for a second. Kevin De Bruyne wasn't really available this year, not in any significant way. And some of the players have already been mentioned. So they got plenty to deal with in terms of what they have available. But I do think that there are a couple of areas in which they could get better.
I would say centre-half, because he's not been convinced about any of them, really, apart from Laporte. Laporte's been the player that's been in all the time. Company's coming towards the end of his career. He talked about John Stones being the future of Man City. He doesn't play him very often. I don't think he played particularly well.
He did early in the season.
Earlier, but then he's gone right off the ball. He's made too many mistakes. Otamendi, we know he can be...
Otamendi's out, isn't he? I think that's it now.
That's the area that I think they might just need another player. And how fit is Mendy going to be next season? Because he's a magnificent left-back. Yeah. But Zinchenko's a central midfield player playing at left-back at the moment. Fabian Delph, I don't think, is the answer. So there are 2 or 3 positions that they can still strengthen.
I think the one thing to look at with City, and I agree, I think, Aguero, Jesus, and somebody else.
Right.
Somebody else there that is going to give them something different. The one thing I'd look at with City is age. Company 33. Fernandinho, who I think could have been, bar for injuries, Player of the Year in England for the last 2 years. That's how important he is. 34. David Silva, 33. Sergio Aguero, I think, 31. Not in the graveyard yet, but probably 2 or 3, maybe 2 years away from losing that yard. So none of these guys, unless Company leaves, none of these guys are finished, but they're going to have to be replenished soon. And I do agree. I think, the Mendy thing's a worry. I think the injuries are a worry. His social media stuff has annoyed the manager at times. I wonder if he's looking at somebody like Ben Chilwell from Leicester, whether he's going to be able to step up or not. He's a young, quick full-back. So I think there's 3 or 4 areas where it's not so much they're not good players, that they're at that age, 33, 34, and those players that I mentioned have been key for City. 2 of them in the last decade, in Company and David Silva, and the other one, Fernandinho, in less time than that, but just as important. That's going to be huge for them going forward when they eventually replace those players.
We're going to be talking a lot about the teams that finish in the top 6 in the Premier League and where they go forward. Of course, they're all playing catch-up when it comes to Manchester City. And we asked you on Twitter whether or not, indeed, they are the best Premier League team of all time. 69% said no.
So that was the 69% of Man United fans?
I was exactly what I was about to say. Yeah,
or the rest of the Premier League.
Or was it half our editorial staff?
We've used the stat quite a bit, but it really does show the difference between how it all started so wonderfully for Solskjaer at United to how it has completely fallen apart so quickly. Just 2 wins out of their last 12 matches, 8 of those ending in defeat. Obviously, when this decision was made, when they gave him the contract, we had quite a discussion on here with you guys regarding whether or not it was the right decision. You felt it was.
No, you misquoted me. I said Ed Woodward had no other option at that particular time because
which is nonsense.
Yeah, you might say that. But
I don't might say it.
The crowd would have gone absolutely mad, and he's got the good feel factor. And there was no way they were going to get Pochettino to be the manager.
Robbo.
You will talk about long-term plans, but in football there aren't long-term plans. There are no long-term plans.
You've just came here at a perfect time, I have to say. You've travelled, you picked it right. You don't just run a football club like Manchester United because you... What are the fans saying? Oh, give Ollie the job. All right, give Ollie the job.
Most of the time, fans pick and choose what goes on.
No, they don't. I tell you who picks and chooses. Really strong chief executives.
But we know Ed Woodward isn't a strong executive.
That make good decisions. This is now going to be, in my opinion, hit. So David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, he's rushed into his 4th bad decision off the back of a...
But would you have said Mourinho was a bad decision when he appointed him? Would you have said Louis van Gaal was a bad decision when he appointed him? They just come 3rd in the World Cup.
I was unsure.
Dutch.
I was unsure about them. However, they at least had a resume to give them a chance to do the job on the basis of what they'd done before. The reasoning for Solskjaer getting the job is a few good results, and he used to play for Man United. I mean, I've never heard anything so silly in all my life. And Ed Woodward here got sucked into the good results, the uplift, the crowd, And he wanted to make himself look good, which he doesn't look now, by the way, by giving him the job.
You've said that you've been fluid on this, on this subject for a while.
Well, look, at the time, and we were riding the wave of what had been the success of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer since coming to Manchester United. And so my position was essentially, look, if getting this manager in place right now and saying that he's going to be here long-term somehow gets these players over the line. And let's not forget that at that time they were riding that momentum and really threatening to finish in the top four. Then maybe they continue that momentum forward. Then I thought it was a risk worth taking. But I think at this point, clearly that momentum has ended. And so you can make the arguments like, look, it was a good idea to see if we could get over the line in the top four. Now that hasn't been the case, well, maybe we got to consider the possibility of going in a different direction.
And the other big argument in the favour of a Solskjaer at the time was that they were talking about we've got to buy new players, we need a whole load of new players, we need a manager in place that's going to be able to buy those players rather than wait until the summer, appoint a new manager and then suddenly we're not sure which players we want and we can't get them. It's too late. That's what happened before when they appointed Mourinho and Louis van Gaal.
The problem they have now is what players can they attract? You've got Europa League and you've got an inexperienced coach. You've got a locker room that seems to be at one with each other. There's a lot of issues going forward. And it's interesting because they are issues, whether or not you like the way he did it, that Mourinho, did address.
Yeah, but they've got lots of problems in terms of, as you said, some of the best players probably want to go now because they don't want to be associated with the club. And there's the best players, but at times bring the worst attitudes. When
we're talking Paul Pogba.
Paul Pogba, you look at, he's not the best player, but Lukaku's done nothing really. Some of the young players like Martial, who's got a great talent, but throughout his time at Manchester United, you look at his attitude and his dynamism or lack of dynamism, his lack of effort at times. That's all got to be addressed by the manager. He can't be nicey-nicey anymore. He's got to make sure, because he'll be out of a job 2 months into the season if he doesn't get results. He's got to make sure this summer he gets the right players in, he gets the right attitude amongst the players.
Robert, how?
Let's be honest, they're laughing at Liverpool, but not publicly, privately. At Manchester City and at Liverpool in particular, they're laughing behind the scenes at the way this club's been run and at the appointment of this manager. The one thing that happened with Mourinho is he wanted... Well, give you an example. One of the players he wanted to fill out the squad was Perisic.
Yeah.
At the time, he was playing quite well. But Ed Woodward didn't want to overpay. Didn't want to overpay. That's his prerogative. I'll tell you what he's going to have to do now. If he wants good players, he's going to have to overpay for everybody. Right? He's going to have to overpay for everybody to try and get them to come in because of the state they're in and because of the place they're playing. And City and Liverpool will be laughing because Chelsea are going to lose Hazard, but for the Court of Arbitration for Sport, will not be able to bring a player in. Arsenal are well behind. And United are miles behind. The only ones that could potentially, if he stays Pochettino and is given money, it could potentially try and get at those two, is Tottenham. The rest are miles behind.
This is it, and this is us just being negative for the fun of it against United.
Well, it's factual.
It's very difficult to paint an optimistic picture looking at United and look at what challenges they have ahead of them as to why they're going to be competing, not just next season, but a good few seasons to come.
They have to take a very good and objective look in the mirror and say, wait a minute, are we just going to bring in players and attract players because we're Manchester United? Well, maybe the history of the club plays a part. But if you're a major player around the world, a major talent, where do you want to be? Yeah. You want to be in the biggest stages available, on the biggest platform available. Manchester United right now is not that stage. And I know some of Manchester United fans will get all excited about this, but the truth is that right now they are a very average team with a rich history, but an average team nonetheless. When you see the sort of goal that they got scored against Cardiff, and I know it's a meaningless game. Well, it's not meaningless. It's not meaningless. It means something to somebody. And you see the goal they get scored off of a throw-in that goes straight into the goal. Are you kidding me? How does this happen at Manchester United? So to your point is, look, you may be Manchester United. You may have a rich history. But I don't think that plays a part when you go and present options to major talent around the world and you say, here's what you have available. And all these other teams, they have Champions League. And all these other teams have aspirations. And all these other teams, they also have money. And they're in a much better position than Manchester United is right now. It's a difficult one.
But you think it'll work, Robert? So let's see how it'll all play out, shall we? Just a reminder, if you ever miss any part of this